Hey everybody, it's Allie, and welcome to our Y&R chat for Sunday, November 18th, 2012. So we have a new restaurant. It's not that different from our old restaurant, Glowworm. It's much more brown and blue. It's very dark. I have a hard time, I struggle a little bit to see some of the scenes. It just feels very dark and night in there. And whereas Glowworm was kind of orange and red and yellow, it had warm colors, and it was something you could see. It had windows, like you could have scenes there during the day. I don't like the new restaurant as much as the old restaurant. That's the summation of my feelings. There's no windows. I didn't see any windows in that set. And I guess the truth is, I'm annoyed at the way Glowworm went down. I'm annoyed that there was little to no follow-up about Glowworm, how Gloria is feeling right now, little to no follow-up about what crawled up Kevin's trousers and got him all crazy. Was the whole point of burning down Glowworm so that we could think for a day that maybe Kevin was the one that burned it down for the insurance money? I don't understand why it was necessary to get rid of a nice bright set and replace it with a dark. It looks nice. It kind of gives me a steakhouse vibe, but we spend a lot of time in restaurants, and this one is just dark. And I appreciate getting new sets. I know we've all been begging for some new sets, but at the same time, you know what's even more important than sets? Storylines. Storylines are more important. And one storyline that Y&R has never been able to get right, in my opinion, is Ronan. They've had so many chances to make his character work, and it just doesn't. It does not work right now, for me anyway. And I did a little bit of snooping around this week, and it appears unofficial, but clearly official, that Jeff Branson is leaving the show. It's not a surprise, considering the fact that a lot of people have been unhappy with the direction that his character has taken, and I feel that it really is such a shame, because if you've been watching my Y&R chat for any length of time, you know that I was a huge Ronan fan, and I feel nothing for him. In fact, I have felt negative toward him, honestly, within the last 2 times that he's been back on the show, because he has so much potential. There were so many storylines that were already started around Ronan and his family, and Y&R just refused to pursue it. They refused to give us anything more from him, and instead, Ronan got all tangled up in Phyllis's mess, just like everyone else always ends up tangled up in Phyllis's mess. And in my opinion, that's where it ended for the character. For me, anyway. I guess I can only speak for myself, but for me, when Ronan started getting, all caught up with Phyllis, that's where it ended. Like, I was supposed to believe that Phyllis has some kind of magic coochie that made Ronan willing to sacrifice his job for her, when everything we've always known about Ronan is that he is all about his job. That's the #1 most important thing to him. I was supposed to believe that suddenly he would also break up a marriage to be with her. It did not feel consistent with his character for me. And now he's accomplished his goal. Phyllis and Nick are over. I don't see them getting back together anytime soon at all. And I think it's pretty clear which way the winds are blowing in Genoa City. It's blowing toward Nick and Avery and Phyllis and Jack, and Ronan is just left out in the wind. He's trying to date her. And it's just not working. They had the first date at the new restaurant set this week, and it was a complete bust. Ronan tried. He did try. He tried to put on a nice suit, and she got dressed up, and they attempted to make it seem like they were just a regular couple, and it fell completely flat. Ronan is not even attractive to me at this point. He looked greasy. His hair, he just looks greasy. His hair is greasy, his skin looks greasy, he looks greasy, and he needs a shave. I like facial hair, but it does not work for him. It just does not look good. So I just wasn't feeling it at all. I will give Ronan credit for trying. He did try. Whatever we want to think, apparently the character had feelings for Phyllis and he wanted to try to make a relationship work, but dating someone who is still in love with her husband and is in fact in the middle, not even out of a divorce because of you, it was clearly never going to work. And it didn't really matter what they did. The Phyllis and Ronan date spiraled down so completely and so deeply. It was almost embarrassing to watch. Ronan he kept trying to salvage it. He wanted to take it down a notch, try to make it less formal, just have them hang out, and that didn't work either. At the end of the night, Phyllis decided, let's just retire this horrible, horrible date and go away. And Ronan clearly didn't want that. He didn't want that. He wants more, and she still sent him away. So he goes over to Jimmy's, which, you guys, speaking of sets that need to be gotten rid of, if you're gonna burn someplace down, why couldn't Jimmy's have been burnt down? I hate the Jimmy set. I have always hated the Jimmy set. It is, again, dark, dank. Glowworm was actually bright. Again, the athletic club, dark. Glowworm was a bright set. I'm just complaining about something I can't even change, but Jimmy's is so gross. And I'm sure that's how it's supposed to be. It's like I can smell the cigarette smoke through the screen when I look at Jimmy's. But Ronan goes there, and stale beer, ugh. But Ronan goes there, he gets completely drunk. Ronan gets wasted, and he does a drunk call for Phyllis. He goes over to her apartment, banging on the door. She's sleeping. She's ready to be done with this evening. He's banging on the door like a maniac, and she opens it up. He's standing there with beer and a pizza, begging her for a do-over. Oh, it was so pathetic. She tried to send him away, realized right away that he's drunk, doesn't want to be involved with this mess. She doesn't need any more emotional problems. She's got enough going on, and now he's kind of trying to hang on to her. In fact, she tries to send him away. I swear to you, he was practically clinging to her legs. Don't let me go. Don't make me go. I don't want to leave you, Phyllis. It's not even the same Ronan. He's falling apart at this point over Phyllis. Although I have to say, the drunk scene was, I'm going to say, probably one of the best scenes that we've seen from Ronan within the last 2 times that he's been back on the show. He finally opened up to Phyllis, finally started talking about how he actually feels. He's in this moment of complete desperation, knowing that she's ready to kick him to the curb, and finally he just says everything that's really on his mind, tells her, I want to know you, I want to open up to you, I want you to be the one that I open up to, and I want you to lean on me. And it was the look in his eyes, the look on his face, and the greasiness almost worked too, because he looked increasingly disheveled over the last several weeks, and now he's just standing there all drunk and sloppy and finally pouring his heart out. And it was the best that we've seen out of Jeff Branson, I think, in the last couple times he's been on the show. I'm watching it thinking, finally, something with some meat. I wish that who he was opening up to was not Chloe. I'm sorry, got Chloe on the brain, was not Phyllis, because I wish it would have been Chloe. I always thought him and Chloe really had a spark, and that would have been the direction to take it, especially since Chloe is so close to the chancellors, close to Nina. She could have ushered him right in to such a cozy little interesting storyline, and instead he's hanging out there in the wind with Phyllis, and as soon as Phyllis decides to blow one way or the other, he's abandoned. And it's such a shame, but at least he kind of is going out with a bang in my mind. I'm thinking, why haven't we been seeing this from him all along? It was phenomenal. I thought that scene was truly phenomenal. It made me like Jeff Branson again. It made me like, you know, Ronan again, if we could get him into the right place, but I know that we can't. And you know, the sad thing is, he and Phyllis probably do have a lot in common. I think that Ronan identifies with Phyllis on a lot of levels. He probably would have been good for her. They're both really poor decision makers. They both have these issues with family. They both have tendencies to close off and not say what they're really feeling. They're both very guarded. Both of them have kind of perpetual issues. They always end up stepping into dog do every time they turn around, and we have experienced that with Ronan. As capable as he was in his job, he had a lot of personal issues. So in some ways, maybe if it would have been different timing, I don't know, maybe they could have had a different kind of relationship, but just unfortunately, Phyllis totally used him, and I believe that. I know there were a lot of Phyllis and Ronan staunch fans, but I saw it all along. I see it now. Phyllis totally used him. Phyllis totally made a fool out of him. I guess I can't blame her because he made a fool out of himself. He was the rebound guy. He was always going to be the rebound guy. She was recently just married. You can't honestly think, Ronan, that you're going to get up in there after they've just recently been married and she's had a relationship, a years and years long relationship with Nick. You can't possibly think you're just going to jump in and she's going to forget all about him and you're going to live happily ever after with her. And I can't entirely blame Phyllis because she gave him no indication that there was anything more than sex between them. He inferred that in. We inferred that in. Or some of you guys inferred that in. I never felt it. But she didn't. I don't feel like she led him on. I think, yes, she used him for sex and probably to make Nick a little jealous, but I don't think she was ever telling Ronan, whispering in his ear, that they were gonna get together someday. I think they had sex. Period. That's what they had, and I don't think that he was seeing what was really there. And it makes me feel sorry for Ronan because at the end of the day, he's a chump. He got used, he got played, and he's a chump for it. But at the same time, I feel sorry for Phyllis because she got forced into that situation by him. She didn't want to lie and say that they were having an affair. I don't think that she led him on, and I know that having someone pursue you that you don't really want is awful. It's an awful feeling, so I feel sorry for her too. I feel sorry for the fans. I feel sorry for the fans who got toyed with into, you know, thinking that Ronan and Phyllis might actually have a relationship and thought that it was going to work out. But I feel sorry for the fans, more like me, who wanted more from Ronan and never got it. Never will get it. Ronan came by Phyllis's apartment the very next day with flowers. He's so pathetic. He's become so pathetic. She's not home. She's at her divorce proceedings, and so he leaves them outside the door. Summer comes along, finds them there, throws them away. Totally just crunches them into the trash can and assumes that Phyllis is lying to her about still seeing Ronan. She thinks that her mother is having an affair with this disgusting, dirty, greasy cop instead of trying to work things out with her father. You can understand why Summer would be upset about it, but I don't understand why she insists on taking it out on this poor kid, Jamie. Summer is just a mean girl. And I can't imagine that. I can't identify with that in any way. I, in high school, was so the opposite. To this day, I'm so the opposite. I could never hurt anybody. I could never do that to somebody. I could never hurt anybody. And I don't understand it. Like, 1 minute that she's calling him a loser and continuing to torture him, and then the next minute she's apologizing to him. I don't know how to get a read on Summer exactly. She seems like a bully, but then the next moment she kind of has a heart, and it's probably only because everyone is starting to figure out that she's the one who did this whole thing to Jamie, who spread these rumors about him. Ronan is not stupid. All of a sudden somebody's jacking with Jamie and Summer's trying to get to know him at the same time. It's not that hard to piece together. So Ronan tells Phyllis that he thinks Summer is involved with this. Phyllis tells Nick, who of course doesn't want to believe it because it came from Ronan. Noah ends up catching wind and confronts her about it. And Fen is finally calling Summer out about this. He's been involved and kind of watched her do this from the beginning, and I really am starting to love Fen. I liked seeing him call her out. I like seeing him kind of brooding in the background. There's something interesting about this kid, and I want to know more about it. I want to know more about who Fen is. What are his issues? He clearly has issues with his father being so stern, because a couple of times he's made comments about, what are you going to treat me like one of your criminals, Dad? Or do you have any evidence, do you have any evidence against me, Dad? Because Michael also caught wind about this cyberbullying thing, confronted Fen about it, and he's like, do you have any evidence? So Fen has grown up in this household where he's had this very staunch, very by-the-book law father, and Lauren has a little bit more, well, a lot more heart, I think, toward her son, but, Lauren has her own issues too, so I want to know more about who Fen is, and I don't know why he's so loyal to Summer. In some ways, he's so loyal to Summer in the same way that Michael has always been loyal to Phyllis, because when confronted about whether or not Summer was involved in this Jamie thing, Fen lies about it. He lies to protect his friend, but he's getting tired of taking the heat. Everybody's like realizing what she's doing. Everyone else can see that she is just shady. And now Fen is starting to catch on to it too. And not only that, but catching on to the fact that she uses flirting to get him to do things. That she flirts with him only when she wants something. And there was a scene where she knows that Michael and Lauren don't want Fen hanging out with her. So there's a scene where Michael and Lauren come in as Fen and Summer are sitting at the Crimson Lights, and just before she leaves, she gives Fen a kiss on the lips and then walks out the door. Just in a reason to get a rise out of Michael and Lauren, and it was rude because it just puts more heat on Fen. She's not a good friend. Summer is just not a good friend at all, and I hope personally that Fen tells Michael about what Summer has done and Summer gets punished. I want Summer to get punished because this Jamie kid is breaking my heart. Not only is he getting bullied now as a result of Summer's picking on him, but he's been picked on his entire life. He's telling stories about how he gets tripped in the hall at school and dunked in the toilet, and that just kills me. I hate seeing anybody getting hurt like that. I hate bullies. It hits me right in the heart for this kid, and it makes me feel like somebody needs to turn the tables on Summer and teach this girl a lesson. Alright, I'm trying to rein myself back in on Nick and Avery. I was really digging them last week, and apparently I'm alone. Apparently a lot of people really don't like Avery and Nick together, and I can see why there is a resistance, especially this week. I'm trying to pull myself back and look at it from a more neutral position, and I can understand. I mean, sleeping with your sister's husband is a big no-no, but so guys messing around with your wife's sister? It seems like everyone is very down on Avery for what's going on here and not as much on Nick. And at least Avery is trying to put the brakes on. She's trying to go slow. She's trying to be honest with everyone. In fact, Phyllis confronted her and asked her, and she said, I'm not going after your husband, but once you're divorced, I might try to date him. And I have to respect Avery for at least trying to tell the truth about what's going on and approach it honestly. Nick just wants to get laid. I feel in so many ways like Nick is this 16-year-old boy, and he always has been. He cares about being with the ladies. Because Avery is constantly putting him off, and he's just like going at it. Nick is just a guy that is just, I'm sorry how guys are sometimes. They have a need, and it needs to be taken care of. And they can't think about anything else. So I don't blame Avery for what's going on here. I can't help but realize and recognize that Phyllis self-destructed. Phyllis destroyed her marriage all on her own this time. She didn't have any help from Nick or anybody else. She lied. She cheated. She made her own bed. So if Nick and Avery want to be together, why shouldn't they? Why should they deny it? If there's chemistry there, then why shouldn't they just be together? Personally, I am loving seeing the fun side of both of these characters because Avery has been so one-dimensional for so long, and it's nice to see that she has qualities. And Nick has just been angry for so long. All Nick does is get angry and punch things and clean up after Phyllis's crap, and I'm enjoying just seeing the lighter side of both of them, just hanging out and talking and eating dinner and having drinks, and it's been fun. And I can see how other people might find it annoying. I mean, it is being laid on pretty thick right now. There are a lot of little cutesy moments. Avery wiping off a foam latte off of Nick's mustache. I mean, there's a lot of that, and I can understand how that would be annoying. But I also kind of like that this is pitting Avery against Phyllis. They're very different, and it's interesting to see them fighting a little bit. Phyllis is a wreck. Phyllis is a wreck right now. I don't know if anybody noticed, but her hair was crazy this week. It was back like in a bun or something, but like there was tendrils coming down off of it. It was messy. She's not as put together as she was. Even during the trial, she still felt put together, but now that the divorce is happening, there's no getting around it. Phyllis is so clearly starting to unravel, and you can see it in her physically. And like in contrast, Avery is probably the most sane person on the show, which may equal boring to you. I don't know. I like her. I think she's quirky, but I don't know. I think that they're so opposite, and it's interesting to see them go at each other. I was very, very surprised by how Phyllis asked Avery to go to the divorce meeting, the settlement meeting with her. It's the morning of her settlement meeting, and Phyllis swings by Avery's apartment, probably to see if Nick was there, honestly, and then asks Avery to go to the meeting with her, like she needs some support. Avery says, I am not going to be able to help represent you. This is your thing. Phyllis says, no, I just want you there as my sister. Which is so shocking because Phyllis hasn't wanted Avery as her sister in quite some time. Plus, Phyllis knows what's going on with Avery and Nick. She saw them kissing at the athletic club and has said nothing about it. She's kept quiet. So what is she up to with this move? It was a moment of very convincing words out of Phyllis's mouth, genuinely saying, I need my sister, but she's, I think, of course, trying to cause problems. She's gonna do anything she can do to stay with Nick, and if that means cutting Avery off with the legs, I think she'll do it. Please. Phyllis didn't need her sister there. She was hoping to cause problems, to make it look like Avery was on her side, or to try to draw Avery over to her side of this Nick and Phyllis argument. Phyllis could have asked Jack to go with her to the meeting. It didn't have to be Avery. It was clearly a tactic, and that whole meeting was painful. When they're talking about how they're going to divide up their assets, it was painful. They've agreed to split up all of the things they have. They haven't been married that long, so there's not that much. But Phyllis has this breakdown moment where they ask, you know, is there anything else you want? And she starts to get really emotional and says that she wants Tedders. I guess a stuffed bear or something that was Summer's, and she wants this mobile that Nick made. I think I do remember him making a mobile for Summer, I think. Or maybe it was Faith. I don't know. It had to be Summer. Because all of a sudden, Phyllis is sitting there breaking down this very professional meeting supposed to talk about your assets, and she wants Tedders and a mobile that Nick made. And she's falling apart. And in contrast, Nick is very cold. He says to her, do you really want to have Tedders mentioned in this legal divorce document? Is that really what you're doing right now? And to me, it seemed, and probably to Nick too, like Phyllis was really hoping to just gain some sympathy from Nick. And Nick is not buying it at all. Hey, Nick has a light at the end of this tunnel, and her name is Avery. Sarge is sticking around Genoa City for a while, but casting update, the character has been moved to recurring. Big surprise, especially since Harmony is gone. And that reminds me that we never got to find out what Sarge's connection to Harmony was. Kind of a disappointment that just got built up and then dropped. I suppose there's a lot of little minor casualties of the regime change, but for now, Sarge is staying on in Genoa City. He's going to help Jack with his physical therapy, and not much else. There's not much else that Sarge is going to be able to do. It was weird because Sarge seemed to not want to stay. He seemed to want to let Jack go. He felt guilty for recommending that Jack not have this surgery a couple of months ago. Flash forward to today, he's had the surgery, he's making a full recovery. Sarge felt guilty for, you know, giving this, or discouraging him to do the surgery. So Sarge wants to leave, and Jack begs him to stay, practically begs him to stay, and then doesn't listen to him at all, doesn't listen to his advice. Jack is moving full steam ahead. Every single scene is Jack trying to do some work, and then It's happened a dozen times this week. It's tap on my computer. Sarge is like, dude, take it easy. There's no reason that you have to push yourself. Oh, I forgot. No, it's actually the correct representation of this week in Jack's life was, oh, let me do this on the computer. Oh, painkiller, glub, 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 glub. Take a mouthful of pills, 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 pills. That's his new motto in life, painkillers. And maybe if he would just take it easy, stay in bed, do the recovery that he needs to do, things would be different. But oh no, that's not possible. Jack, why does he have to push? Like, can't he just be satisfied with being alive and well and walking again? You know, actually, there was a scene this week between Jack and Phyllis where Jack talked a little bit about who he is, what his motivations are, what drives him, and he mentioned that when I was a kid, I didn't dream of being a movie star or a baseball player. I dreamed of being a businessman, just like my dad. I wanted to get into the big leagues. That was my wildest, fondest dream, and now here I am, and I'm not going to give it up. And I thought that was good. It gave some insight into where Jack is coming from, but there's got to be some kind of in-between. Your health isn't worth this if you get addicted to painkillers. I mean, it's not good. Jack is constantly taking one step forward and then shooting himself in the foot, you know, with the next step. It's just it's the nature of his character, and I have to say I'm glad that Phyllis moved in. I mean, it's fast, but I'm glad at least that Phyllis is there helping him. He needs someone to help him, and I think he's helping Phyllis in a lot of ways too. They had a very nice heart-to-heart this week where he told Phyllis it's time to move on. There's sometimes things weigh you down and you just have to move on from it. And it resulted in Phyllis realizing that she needed to take off her wedding ring. And she had that private moment there with Jack. So I think it's nice that they're able to help each other through this. I like seeing more of the Abbott house with more than just Jack in it. Seeing Jack roaming around alone in the Abbott mansion is heartbreaking to me. It's just so sad, and Jack deserves so much more, I think. He deserves a relationship. He deserves a family. Those are the things that he's always said that he wanted, and he just never is able to accomplish it. And I don't know. I don't know if Phyllis is going to be the one to bring him that, but I like the idea of a reformation a little bit of both of their characters, a softening a little bit of both of their characters. I don't know. We'll have to see. But the thing I wanted to mention also, speaking of sets, is did you guys notice that when we're in the Abbott living room, usually you can see the dining room doors, but the dining room doors were closed this time. I mean, you know, you've got the main living room and then the door to the dining room, which we've seen many times. We've even seen then from there the door to the kitchen. I think we've seen the kitchen a few times. But this time the dining doors were closed, and I thought, I bet you that means the set is closed. I bet you they shrunk that set to make room for all of these other sets. And that just makes me a little bit sad. The Abbott house, the Abbotts are just dwindling. And it just makes me sad. I don't know. The other thing is, I thought that Phyllis was going to be staying in the pool house, to which she would naturally exit through the dining room to get there, but at the end of their little heart-to-heart meeting, she went upstairs for the end of the night. They were like, all right, good night. She walked upstairs. So I'm guessing she's not staying in the pool house. She's apparently staying upstairs in the bedroom, you know, in the bedroom area, which is where Jack stays as well, which my mind automatically says, I wonder how long it'll be until Phyllis slips into Jack's room one of these nights to take him for a test ride. Just briefly, I have to mention, Neil has decided that he would like to hire Leslie to be on his legal staff at Chabot. So let me make sure I got this right. Leslie is going to go from being a partner at a private practice with one of the most high-profile lawyers in the world, Vance Abrams. He's supposed to be like the lawyer. She's gonna give up a partnership with him where she's probably making buku bucks to go salary to be on a legal team at Chabot? That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And there's always been this little bit of, you know, relationship between Neil and Leslie, which I would have been for, but at this point, I feel nothing but annoyance because it's as if they have just taken Harmony out, plopped Leslie in, and I don't like that. It's not about Leslie. I like Leslie. The point is, why would they do that? We were just getting used to Harmony. I was just getting there with their relationship. We went through so much to get there with that relationship, and now all of a sudden we have to start all over again with another relationship for Neil that probably won't work out in the end because none of his relationships ever work out. I don't understand what the point of getting rid of Harmony was. If you're just gonna bring in Leslie, like what? Was Leslie cheaper? Billy, you didn't really think that you could keep this secret about Victoria's kidnapping from Victor, did you? Really? Victor started to get suspicious after his powers of deductive reasoning led him to realize that the email that Billy sent on Victoria's behalf, trying to throw everybody off the scent, was not written by Victoria, because you know how meticulous Victoria is about her grammar. And this email had incorrect grammar. And Victor confronts Billy and goes on this long diatribe about how the email said that the email used the conjugation of the verb they are, and it should, or they is, and it should have been they are. I mean, like, it was ridiculous. Just the whole sentence, the whole paragraph made my head spin, and I majored in English. I fancy myself being pretty good with grammar, and that whole thing just blew my mind. Like, my head just like spun right off of my neck, and I'm like, I can only imagine Eric Braeden trying to memorize those lines like it was a tongue twister. And it just made Victor look so dumb, like he's the freaking grammar police busting up in Billy's house, you know, trying to, you know, it was ridiculous. It was surely the most ridiculous moment of the week, for sure, hands down. But now that Victor knows what's up, has completely been debriefed on the kidnapping situation, he wants to butt in and take charge. And Billy assumes that if Victor is involved, he's going to screw the whole thing up. And it's kind of a weird situation because in Billy's mind, it's a simple transaction. Victoria for the money. We go give this guy the money, he will give us Victoria, end of problem. To Victor, it's a lot more complicated. He thinks that this guy may not be working alone. There are a lot of other factors to consider. And I understand Victor's point. You don't want to go into a situation like this blind. I think that Billy is operating out of fear. And Victor is in business mode, you know, he's got a dossier on the guy, he's got the whole thing, like he's in control of the whole thing. Whereas Billy just wants his wife back. He's fully on instinct at this point. And I mean, for crying out loud, Billy wants to take care of this whole thing himself, but he's booked a commercial flight to Miami to do the drop-off, like the exchange, as if he's just gonna get onto a plane with $2 million in cash in a bag. God help you. If you even try to get onto a plane with an 8-ounce bottle of water in this country, let alone $2 million in cash, the TSA is gonna take that bag. You will never see it again. Give me a break. Victor at least has the foresight to use the private jet, do a little background research, get some information on the situation, which I agree is a little bit dangerous because he's got someone watching this guy. If it's not the right people, unless he's working with some primo pro guys, it could go wrong. And I do understand Billy's point to, if Eddie G finds out that Victor's been involved or that anyone else is involved, then it's gonna be it could be a bloodbath. It could be Victoria paying the ultimate price. I don't know why at this point Victor wouldn't have involved Ronan, Mr. FBI. I mean, he freaking calls Ronan for the fire at the ranch. Victor lost the dog and calls Ronan. I'm surprised he didn't call him for this, but Victor shockingly agreed to not go to this confrontation because Victor's very high profile and it's a dangerous situation. And plus, my God, Victor has been in enough, he's been involved in enough lately. Let Victor stay home. Instead, Nick is gonna go get in on the action, which I was glad to see that Nick is gonna go help Billy, even though it's not exactly helping when everyone's blaming Billy. Nick, as soon as Nick found out about Victoria's kidnapping, Nick runs in, and you know what he did. I don't even have to tell you what he did. If you didn't watch Y&R this week, I'll give you, you can guess right now what Nick did as soon as he found out about this. He went over to Billy's house and he attempted to beat him up. That is what Nick does. But for the moment, he's putting that aside. He's gonna go help Billy in this gigantic mess of a situation. And I was annoyed that Victor kind of had a little jab with Nick. Like, suddenly Nick is back in helping the family, as if not working at Newman Enterprises meant that Nick is going to turn his back on Victoria. Victor's like, oh really, you're helping us now? Yeah, it's his sister. This family is jacked up. Nikki is standing in the background, helpless. She doesn't know what to do. And I don't know, Nikki doesn't seem that worried. It's weird. Billy seems the most worried. Everybody's just, I don't know, it's an awkward situation. But Nikki did bring up a really good point that Victoria's been kidnapped before. What do you know? Only in these people's lives could you get kidnapped twice in a lifetime. And neither of them were really because she was Victor Newman's daughter. Neither of them were like, we want to get a ransom out of Victor. They could get a whole lot more than $2 million out of Victor. But Nikki mentioned the time when Victoria got kidnapped. It was when Heather Tom was playing the role. I do remember it. And the guy who kidnapped her was stalking her. I think he just had like a sexual crush on her or something. And so he kidnapped her and he was holding her in a tree house on the ranch. Everybody, you know, of course, as soon as Victor found out that his daughter was kidnapped, he had the hounds out and they couldn't find her right underneath his nose. But it was interesting to make that connection. I wish they would have done a flashback, but of course they couldn't have because it was a different actress. But I was pretty proud of myself for remembering that because I do not have a memory for storylines. I mean, I remembered what the guy looked like. Gary Dawson was his name, and I remembered what he even looked like in the face, which is shocking for me because, like, my brain has something like maybe 500 gigabytes of information that it can possibly have stored. And I just don't have room for old Y&R storylines in there if I want to continue operating my daily life. You guys are really good about it. Some of you people just remember stuff. That is not me. If it's not current, I can maybe remember things within the last couple years, but if it's not current, like, it drops off. It drops out of my, I have to delete that information. I just don't have room for it. But I did remember this, and I thought it was good that you know, the writers actually, the new writers, in fact, actually acknowledged some of that history. And, hey, maybe having been kidnapped before has helped Victoria be able to negotiate her way out of the situation, and she was doing a pretty good job of that. She started warming up to good old Eddie G, and she started getting information out of him. Even Eddie G has a story. Even Eddie G has a heart deep down in there. And it became revealed that not only did Billy screw this guy out of money and get him thrown in jail, but as a result of that, his wife left him and took their son and ran off, and so now the guy misses his son. So Victoria's kind of connecting with him on that level, that they both, you know, miss their children. Gee, I wonder why this guy's wife would run off and not contact him and not tell him where the child is. But Victoria was doing a really good job of pulling that emotion out of him, and she's being nice enough to him that he actually let her out of that horribly lit dungeon room and brings her up to, I guess, like an apartment that he's staying at, and, you know, they're talking, and he actually opens up to her, and Victoria is opening up back, and she seems like she's ready to promise him the world. She says, I can get more money for you than Billy can, and guess what? I'll even help you find your son. This guy's a hardened criminal, and Victoria is offering to help track down his kid, which is, I'm sure, just what they need. Just what this poor kid needs. I'm sure that the guy's wife would really appreciate that. She's probably in hiding from this guy, and now Victoria's like, here, he's your problem now. Just let me go and go deal with your family. You can deal with them. Just let me out of it. It was such a, like, I kept getting, the whole time I'm watching this, getting a Kindergarten Cop vibe. Like, do you remember that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, Kindergarten Cop, where like the ex-con gets out of jail and he goes searching for his son and he really wants to focus in on the son, and I'm like, don't do it! Don't do it, Victoria. Don't help him find them. It's a disaster. That's so rude and wrong. Save your own butt, but here's a hardened criminal. Set him on upon this child. I always remember that movie. That was the movie with the famous line, "It's not a tumor." Kindergarten Cop. Rent it. And make the one point of connection that it has with Young and the Restless right now. But anyway, Victoria had this guy lulled, is the point. She had him right where she wanted him, and in this instinctual move, she decides to go for his phone. He leaves his phone on the table, which is also stupid because in an earlier scene, Billy had referred to the fact that this guy was using a tracked phone. Now all of a sudden he's got an iPhone with touchscreen and all that, and she's looking at his phone and flipping it over and trying to dial 911. Well, I don't know how that was even going to help her. What was she going to do? Like dial 911 and then they were going to listen to them having a perfectly normal conversation about their children? I don't know how that was even going to help her. It was, that was a poor risk. She didn't trust Billy. I mean, throughout this whole interaction between her and the guy, there was them talking about kind of Billy being a screw up, and she had even said to herself, please Billy, come through for me, don't mess this up, get this right. But clearly in this moment she doesn't trust her husband to fix the situation for her, so she takes a stupid risk in going for this guy's phone when his back is turned. How was that gonna help? It was just a bad move, bad move. She's emotionally drained and starving, and it just didn't work. It was really a bad idea. She almost had him fooled, and now the guy feels betrayed, and any goodwill that she was able to garner with him is gone now. So the guy is angry that she has tried to, he finds out obviously, turns around, sees what she's doing, and he starts wielding the gun, saying that, oh, maybe I just better take care of you, take something away from Billy, pointing the gun in her face. And I don't know, that was kind of the end of Friday's show. You know, next week there's gonna be some kind of showdown, and I'll tell you, I will bet you a bag of donuts that Billy takes a bullet for Victoria. That's just how I think it's gonna go down. I mean, it is November sweeps, right? So I just have a feeling that he's going to take a bullet for her, and whether he survives is anyone's guess. This week, Sharon sneaks off of one huge private estate and onto another. She leaves the cottage at Adam's house and sneaks onto the ranch to the tech house to go see Noah when Nick isn't home. She misses her kids, and she wants to reconnect with them. It's annoying that Sharon is always super focused on her kids when she's in trouble, when it's a convenient excuse. I don't know. It is annoying, but she wants to get her life back on track, and she asks Noah to bring Faith to see her. And Noah's like, well, where are you at? Where are you staying? And Sharon reveals that she is staying at Adam's, and then Nick comes home, so she runs off. Noah goes to confront Adam pretty much right away and says, you know, what are you doing with my mom? What's the deal here? He wants to be mad at Adam, but then there's this moment where Adam says, hey, I'm the only one that's helping her. Your mother is sick, and she needs help, and everyone else abandoned her but me. Which made sense on the surface, and it seemed to almost have a heartwarming end for Noah and Adam, but I don't know, is Adam really helping her? Is he helping himself? Adam helped her kind of too late. Adam helped her get into this situation in many ways. He's the one that stole that footage of her and Sky on the volcano, threw it into the river, and let her sit in prison for for weeks, further isolating her from her family and causing Victor to be the one to save her, which started this marriage and ridiculous relationship between her and Victor. So Adam set this into motion in a lot of ways, and I think he knows it, and I think that's why he's helping her now. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know, is Adam the savior here? Is he really the savior here? Because I don't know that I completely buy that. But Noah did, and he decided to bring Faith to go see Sharon. And Faith not seeing Sharon may have really been a better idea. I'm pretty sure that this meeting between Sharon and Faith scarred Faith for life. All of a sudden, Sharon sees Faith and she goes into manic mode. She's like, how are you doing, honey? How's school? You want a drink? You want something to eat? You want to lay down? You hungry? You hungry? Sleepy? What can I do for you? You want some food? It's just a complete whack job. Practically smothers Faith, and it scares the little girl. It's as if this is her mother, but on some weird adrenaline rush, or it's her mom bot. It was a very, very awkward meeting, and yet it did make Sharon feel better. It calmed down. She had a little moment with Faith, and Faith is missing her mother, yet at the same time, they're telling the child, you know, mommy has to be here, but don't tell daddy, don't tell anyone that you saw her. You know, Noah has really kind of betrayed his dad a little bit by not telling him what's going on with Sharon and taking Faith to go see Sharon in a bad state. That really might not have been the best thing for the child. And they're telling Faith to keep this whole thing a secret, but you can't trust a little kid to keep a secret. I think Faith is gonna turn around and tell Nick as soon as he gets back from whatever's going on with Victoria, and Nick is gonna be pissed about it, and Noah's gonna take some heat for this one. And speaking of Noah, what the heck? What's going on with him? He got this mystery box this week. He opens it up. It's a duffel bag with a bunch of money in it and a note that said something like, things are getting crazy here. Can you just hold on to this for me? And it was from someone named A. He makes a phone call to this Adriana person who was presumably his ex-girlfriend that he's kind of been mourning over for the last couple weeks. I don't know. Why would you get involved, Noah, with a girl who has duffel bags of money? I don't know. I don't understand where this is headed, but I guess we'll see. Sharon is on the road to recovery, so it seems. Her doctor has finally made a diagnosis that she has bipolar disorder, and the doctor gives her some medication, which in combination with the therapy she's hoping will get Sharon back on to the road to reality. And Sharon is hesitant about taking the medication. She has no problem medicating herself with liquor and burning down the ranch, but taking MAOIs, that's kind of a different story. She's really hesitant to do it, and she did end up taking the first pill. I just hope to God that she takes this medication. Like, normally I wouldn't say that. Normally I don't think I would, but I'm making an exception. Here we go. Take the pills, Sharon. Okay, take them on schedule. Take them exactly the way you need to take them. Whatever you need to do in your mind to make it okay, make it okay. Drugs are good for you, Sharon. Here, I'll give them to you myself. Here's the pill. Here comes the airplane, open wide. I'll plop it onto your little tongue myself just to get you to act normal again. It's time, Sharon. It's time to get you back to where you need to be. Forget everything you ever learned in high school. Just say yes to drugs. Adam and Chelsea have a bedroom. We saw a bedroom scene with them this week. The only problem is, you guys, I'm sorry, Adam may be sleeping with Chelsea, but his mind is on Sharon. You can't deny it. There are some glaring obviousnesses here. Sharon needs Adam, and he comes running. Can't get there fast enough. Chelsea needed him when she lost their baby, and he can't be bothered. He abandoned her when she needed him the most. He lied to her, and he put her in danger. Just wait until she finds out that Adam was really the one behind the burning down of Glowworm. He was revealed this week. It wasn't actually Kevin that did it. It was the guy that Adam hired to start a random fire. He was like, Adam hired this guy to start another random fire, and the fireplace he picked was Glowworm. And oddly, like, that guy, was that Christopher Titus? I don't know if you guys know Titus, but I'm watching the scene and I'm thinking, did Titus burn down Glowworm? It was weird. But when Chelsea makes that connection, that it was her father's restaurant, I mean, Adam is struggling to cover up for Sharon, and it ended up costing her family something. And Chelsea isn't stupid. She did figure it out, and she confronted Adam about it, and he lies. He lies, says he has nothing to do with it. I'm sure in his head, he thinks he's protecting her. But to everyone else on the outside, it's only a matter of time until this relationship is over. Sorry, Chelsea and Adam fans, but I feel like the writing is on the wall. Adam's got his ex-wife living on the property, practically lying in wait. Oh, she's so helpless, she needs him, and he's perfectly willing to be there for her at the risk of his own marriage. He conveniently took a job at Newman Enterprises and intentionally took a job at Newman Enterprises that keeps him away from Chelsea for long hours. He's working until late at night. He's not having a priority to get home. It's not good. It is really not good. And this week, Sharon is down in the cottage, writing in a journal, scribbling her thoughts down, and Chelsea walks in and sees what Sharon has written. She's got all these crinkled up pieces of paper. Chelsea picks up the crinkled piece of paper and sees what Sharon is kind of writing in a diary sort of way. And Sharon is saying, I miss my kids, but I'm so grateful for Adam. He's my touchstone. And Chelsea, I can only imagine she wanted to throw up a little bit in that moment. Sharon catches her, says, these are my private thoughts. You shouldn't be looking at this. You had no right to look at this. You're on my property, lady. Chelsea tried to back off and say, oh, I'm sorry, you're right. I understand how you're feeling. Chelsea and Sharon actually had this moment of connecting over, having kids, and it was just actually kind of a nice little moment about understanding what it feels like to be lonely and missing kids. And it was just a brief moment that the two ladies actually got along. And then Chelsea's paranoia started setting in. She just realized what I realized too, which is that Adam doesn't love her the way that he loves Sharon. It's not the same. And Chelsea confronted him about that and said, you don't love me. You will never love me the way that you love Sharon. And he denied it, said, I chose you. I could have gone with Sharon when she tried to stop me from marrying you, and I didn't. And that's very, very true. But at the same time, it's almost as if Adam is developing this I need to rescue women sort of vibe, because when he did marry Chelsea, it was as if he kind of wanted to rescue her. She was going through all of that stuff with Billy and Victoria and the baby, and she was down, and he wanted to help her up, because I think that makes him feel like a good person. Adam is almost like this guy that constantly has to wash his hands. He probably always feels dirty. He always feels like he's done wrong, because he has done wrong, and it makes him feel good to help other people, makes him feel like a better person. So I wonder if his relationship with Chelsea was kind of based on him wanting to help her, and now he's shifted that focus over to Sharon and he wants to help her, and Chelsea sees it very plainly. But what a good moment where she said to him, you won't never love me the way you love her. I wonder if she's seeing it before he is really even seeing it. It's not good news for Chelsea and Adam. At all. Chelsea immediately goes down to confront Sharon, presumably. She sneaks out of the house and goes down to the cottage, and Sharon's sleeping, and there's this really creepy moment where Chelsea's just standing over Sharon, just looking at her. This is the woman who's destroying my marriage. And Sharon's so broken. How can you kind of blame her? Adam is just as culpable as Sharon. I don't think Sharon's doing this to get back with Adam. I think Sharon is a broken woman, and you almost can't blame her for what she's doing. She's just so not being herself. But my bigger question is, how desperate is Chelsea at this point? Is Chelsea desperate enough to do something to harm Sharon? Because the way she was looking at her was kind of evil. Or is Chelsea possibly going to leak to Victor that Sharon was the one that burned down the ranch? Is she gonna kind of try to clue some people in on what Sharon has done? I don't know. Is she gonna, I just get the feeling that there's some malicious intent for Chelsea. I don't know if she's gonna physically hurt her or maybe do something to mess with Sharon. I don't know which would be worse. Jill and Tucker are continuing to try to convince Katherine to not go back to work at Chancellor, that her health is at risk and it's just not a good idea. And Katherine is like a teenager. She's kind of like Fen in the way that the more people tell her that she shouldn't go back to work, the more she wants to do it. And maybe that's just the rebel spirit, but Jill has this idea that if Katherine is going to insist on going back to work, why not get some help? Jill decides, why don't we create this triumvirate, and Katherine and Jill and Tucker can all be co-CEOs at Chancellor. That way they can help Katherine. She doesn't have to carry all of this load on her own. They can help to, take some of the burden. But how efficient is that going to be? 3 CEOs? That just looks bad. And plus, isn't Tucker already the head of a multinational conglomerate? How is he going to have time to be a CEO of Chancellor too, which is also a very big company? Where is he going to find the time for that? This could really cut into his hairstyling time. I mean, Tucker probably spends a good hour a day just looking in the mirror with his hairspray, trying to make sure he looks all good. I don't know how he's going to pull this one off. And Jill just needs something to do, and I'm fine with that. I honestly think that Jill has good intentions for Katherine. I think she's trying to operate in Katherine's best interest. But Tucker, no way. I don't buy it. I think that Tucker is definitely up to something. And if Katherine can't smell this rat from a mile away, she definitely does not need to be sitting behind that desk. Hooray! Chris found the video of Ricky murdering Rachel. Didn't say where she found it. Didn't say how she found it, I don't think. But she found the video. Yay! Paul will finally be exonerated of the crime of trying to kill his son. Oh wait, no, not at all. Not at all. It was the video has turned out to be pretty much useless. Yes, it proves that Ricky was a murderer and that Eden was in danger, but Paul wouldn't have known that. It doesn't establish anything. It's sort of a sideline kind of thing. So that's Michael's position anyway. Chris thinks, oh, this is going to save Paul forever. Michael's being a hard ass about it. He can't drop the charges against Paul. I'm just annoyed. I'm just annoyed because, as you know, the only acceptable outcome for me for this is Ricky being alive at the end of this. And I guess it's good because I don't want Paul to get off. I don't want this storyline to just go away. I don't want it to just be like, poof, Paul's free, and no drama. I want an arc. I want a conclusion. I want something to happen. And it's just delayed. It's been delayed. I mean, this has to have been going on since, I think it's been going on since July. It's absurd how long it's been going on. Why needs to bring this to a head? Instead, they keep sidelining. Now, Paul and Chris are involved. I don't care that much. To be honest with you, Paul and Chris, yeah, back in the day maybe I cared, but they're not on screen enough for me to care. It's just tacked on. It's these weird little, just sidelines, when really what we need is to get Ricky back on the scene and blow this up. Let Ricky be alive and the big reveal so that Paul can get out of this. I am having a hard time focusing on a love story when I just want to focus on when Ricky's gonna be alive again. He's the only interesting thing in this whole storyline, and it's just, everything else is just sadness, because Chris is wanting to save Paul, and Paul is still in love with Christine, and at the very end of Friday's show, they had a kiss, and what do you know? Nina walks in right at the moment when they're kissing. Oh, hey, it's my best friend kissing my boyfriend. What's new in the world of Nina? This is like the story of her life. Nina, always a bridesmaid, never a bride. Okay, my friends, that is going to do it for me for this week. That's everything I have to say. It's your turn to tell me what you think about this week's show, so please don't hesitate to leave me a comment here in the comment box below this video. Type it out. 1 comment, 2 comments, 3 comments, whatever you have to say, please don't hold back. I totally want to hear it. And next week, I believe, is going to be a short week. Thanksgiving. I'm assuming there's not going to be a Thursday show. Sometimes they'll run a classic episode on Friday and maybe even Wednesday. I don't know what next week is going to look like, but no matter what, I will definitely be back next week to chat about our show, even if it's abbreviated. So everybody have an awesome week, have an awesome holiday, and I will see you guys next Sunday. Okay? Bye.